So these are the beliefs that we came up with. When it comes to language, being proficient in a language means to be able to communicate your ideas effectively and without it being necessarily perfect. But that being said, we would prefer to concentrate on meaning and use rather than form. When we came up with this belief, it was based on the pretty much fact that you can't speak 100% perfect English, right? Like you can be accurate and like concentrate on being accurate, but personally, we feel like that might be detrimental and maybe even demotivating for a lot of students. So as long as they're able to communicate their ideas like in a way that other people can understand them, we feel that that's good enough for us to consider them maybe not fluent but adequate when speaking the language. And that's where we go into the concentrated on meaning and use rather than form. Like you don't need to be like, again, accurate at all. As long as you can as long as you can state whatever you're trying to say in a manner that everybody else will understand you. And the next one, Alejandro is going to read and explain.
Mhm. Next one is beliefs about the social context of language. Um, Says have students understand and acknowledge the cultural difference that exists in order to communicate more effectively by breaching such cultural barrier. So the first thing this applies to is of course the different types of English that there's around the world. And there's different expressions that are used. Like for example in America, in England, in Australia, they use different expressions and maybe if you generalize, if you use an American expression in Australia, they might not understand you, or I cannot think of a specific example, but it will go maybe as far as being rude in another culture. So don't assume that every speaking English speaking country has the same cultural backgrounds or the same way of expressiveness. You have to be like a little bit more careful about that. Not only that, but you also need to be aware about your first language. That again, maybe you're trying to say an expression in English, but what you're actually doing is translating an expression in your native language into English. And for example, the expression cada quien in Spanish has an equivalent in English being to each their own, but literally translating cada quien in English does not work.
Each
So
one.
you have to be mindful about those things that your also your own types of expressions don't really work in translation most of the times. And basically that's what we refer with in the context, the cultural context, social of language.
Explain the next one.
And then beliefs about learning and learners. Student-centered is the approach that benefits the most of this framework since it promotes cognitive growth in the students as well as critical thinking. Uh, I think me personally, through the VA, I've been kind of sold on the idea that student-centered learning is the best to try to do. Since after all, they are the ones who are benefiting from the teaching. They're the ones who are gonna have to that they're gonna harvest the fruits of their labor to put it away. It's not the teachers that we need to learn, or honestly, there's no point in us trying to be like a dictator or like commander. No, we need to be a guide. We need to be someone that facilitates the learning for the learners and that they can partake in cognitive process that allows them to improve their skills. So it's a belief that the student-centered learning will be the most appropriate for ours and in general.
Yeah, just to add a little bit onto that, this belief we based it most of all on the general assumption that in order to speak proper English or like differentiate languages, you have to like develop the ability to think in English. So rather than just, thinking Spanish, then translating that and then find an appropriate proxy when it comes to lexical chunks. So yeah. And finally, beliefs about teaching. The teacher should be firm but flexible. If possible, the teacher should involve students in the class planning by listening to their needs. Be humanistic about it. So when it comes to a lot of like the planning, uh, usually teachers just come up with something and then they decide to put students through it. And we don't believe in that. Rather, we believe in the fact that a teacher can involve their students in the class planning process, where like students can take some can make some choices when it comes to the material that they're going to touch, in terms of like, okay, what activities are we making, when is this taking place, and stuff like that. Like, of course the teachers still have most of the control. He is a facilitator, right? But he still needs to have most of the control when it comes to the class, because like students themselves won't know what they're doing. So as long as the teacher is steering them in the right direction for proper learning, then he can take other liberties or like allow students a few choices when it comes to like the material that they're going to use. And this is all possible by listening to their needs, or like their goals, and also and all that stuff that we previously mentioned, and being flexible by understanding the position or like the positions in which their students can be at the moment, and taking that into consideration for like his decision making when it comes to the planning.
Okay, well, Priscilla, you're looking, I just want to mention something. Well, Alejandro mentioned some interesting point about culture and the differences. And remember that it's not only about, I don't know also if you have had the subject culture. Did you have culture and language as a subject?
Yeah, teacher, you don't remember?
Culture and language. Did you have it with me?
I did.
Okay, you did, but the rest no, right? Because they are face to face, so you did it. Okay, so that's actually where you learn. There are so many things, and I don't know, Luis, if you remember example that I provided in the study material, and that's actually example from my experience when I was teaching in Australia and New Zealand, and I had students from different countries. And well, generally, there were obviously New Zealand and Australian students. And once I showed the gesture that was not appropriate. And it was, I was asking, do you have two children? Luis, do you remember this gesture? Do you have two? This is what it doesn't mean in Mexico.
This is just say like, what's up?
What's up? Okay, or like this, right? Like peace, hi, right? What's up? In Australia, it means that I show you the middle finger twice. It's even, it's like even more rude than one finger. So you cannot show two fingers there, okay? So for them would be maybe, I don't know, like twice they would show one, two, they will count like this, one, two, okay? But they will not count one, two. So even just the simple thing, and even we have Americans and Australians speak English, but they have different body language, different gestures. So this is another thing that we have to be careful about. It's Alejandro mentioned, you might sound offensive, right? Without knowing it. And that's what I had. My colleague was from New Zealand. And she showed me, what you just did. I was like, I didn't do anything. Yes, you were very rude. I was like, I just asked them how many children they have and design them. That's it. And no, you show them two fingers. I was like, so what? And she explained this the thing that it's not common there. And I didn't know that. So I was living that situation. I had that mistake. Okay. So Priscilla, are you ready? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
We had kind of like a debate because I am very grammarian. I love grammar, and I think grammar is very important when it comes to like language. But then my classmates said that we need like maybe vocabulary can be also like maybe a little bit more important, because when we took language systems, the teacher said that with grammar, there was like a quote like with grammar very little can be conveyed, with no grammar very little can be conveyed, and with vocabulary a lot, something like that. But basically it's that with words you can get your way with communication, and with grammar, even if you don't have very good grammar. um, but we decided to use like this quote, like the pronunciation, grammar, lexis, and discourse. Like it's not that one it's more important than the other, but it's each language system has its own importance. So we agreed that we see it as a like as a whole, like these parts are essential and crucial about language. Like we need to take into consideration that the register, how it is said, the context of it, the pragmatics, and then also the pronunciation and grammar, lexis, etc. Then our beliefs about the social context of language, we said that culture is very important when it comes to seeing the context of the target language, because when we learn another language, we have to be aware of our own culture and aware of the other of the target language, the culture of the target language. Because as you were saying, like something that is appropriate for us may not be for other people, and when we learn this new language, we need to know in which context it's appropriate, and culture has a lot of influence in this aspect. um, oh, and then we have the beliefs about learning and learners. And we said that learning can be perceived as a process of problem solving and discovery by the learner. So we see it as a more of a cognitive process of the learner. Sometimes we see it most deductive, but we were discussing that for us an inductive approach of learning it's more effective for learners because it reduces anxiety. They are not scared of it. They get more confident with language, as if it was like a deductive process. And this involves them, like this engages them at a more at a deep cognitive level, and they are more likely to learn in this matter. In this manner, sorry. And then the beliefs about teaching is that the teacher and students negotiate the language and skills and methods of learning. Like it's not just one, like a one-way communication, like it goes both ways. Like I give you kind of maybe I do a proposition and you tell me if you like it, what can we change. We decided to go to choose this like a perspective because we wanted to take like a turn away from traditional teaching, which is I am the sage of the stage and I know everything and you don't know nothing. So we wanted to make it more, you will say modern, but also to actually involve learners, because there's another quote that says involve me and I'll never forget, or I'll truly learn. And that's what we think teaching is all about. Like it goes both ways. As the teacher, we learn from them and they learn from us. So yeah, that's what we got.
Okay, so these are our beliefs. Starting up with the first one, the beliefs about language is that we think and we agree that language should be used as a tool of communicating a message, something, crossing something to someone else, so you can be understood and others can understand you too. Jackie, can you make it bigger, please? Okay. Now, the belief about teaching. We were discussing that motivation is one of the key features of teaching, because if we manage to find a way to motivate the class, the students, we will have better results. They will be engaged and willing to learn. So we, of course, students will have like a better learning process. They're going to enjoy it, and it's gonna be easier for the teacher to give the class, because they will be like always excited and willing to learn things. And yep. And okay, so can you go down? Okay, and learning and learners. Okay. Learning is a cognitive process that involves like mental activities, like processing information and understanding. Can you go down, Jackie, please?
That was it.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if my classmates wants to add something else.
Yeah, I think there is one section, the social context, right?
Yeah. Oh, that one, we agreed that it was to make students aware of the different accents, different vocabulary we can find in depending on the country you are at. Like the example you gave with the Australian gesture, that's not the meaning we have here. So if we do it there, of course, we're maybe going to offend someone. And as teachers, I think our job is to maybe not, of course, explain the whole cultural background and context of each English-speaking country, but like to give small pieces of information. That's it.
Okay, yes, that's actually the point of social cultural awareness. In order to understand the language, right, we should understand that it's not about accent, it's not about the use of some certain phrases, but also understanding and respecting other people's beliefs, values, culture, right, traditions. So we might include it just as I did today, just give you one example of the difference. So comparing it to what we have here with the other examples that we might have in other countries, right? Let's say if you say what's up here in American would be normal and people would just understand that it's just hi, right? But when you go to Britain and you say what's up, they would just look up, right? And say, there is nothing up. What is up? Nothing. Okay, so you might explain these things and it takes just a really short time. Okay, so let's just quickly, what time do we have? A few minutes. Okay, so I wanted you to look at this part from the reading and how you understand it. So the conclusion that was provided by Diane, what do you think about her opinion? Hey, and let me see. Okay, let's start with the Frida. Frida, what do you think? Have you read this conclusion? Do you agree, disagree?
I kind of agree.
What does she wants to say with this? Why do you agree?
I think that she wants to say that when students, I mean, when they say active efforts, they're trying to make meaning out of what they're getting, and that meaning is the learning that occurs.
Okay. Okay, Okay, anybody would like to add something to the Frida's comment? Who analyzed this conclusion?
I've heard something like learning takes place in the classroom. Like they say that like if learners could only learn if they are in a classroom setting. But I think this paragraph says that it's not, that it's the contrary. Like it actually happens in their minds, like whenever they get a chance to practice with it. So you may, as a teacher, you may give them the instruction and the information needed to acquire this new knowledge in the classroom. But if they later on, I don't know, at their house or something, they practice with the language, therefore in that moment it's going to take place the actual learning.